Welcome to the Upper Room at St Clement's Church, Manchester. Join us as we discuss the Bible, theology and life.
Hello and welcome back to the Upper Room. Thank you so much for joining us. Paul Jumpers here with me as usual. How are you doing, Jumpy?
Very well, Henry. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, not too bad. I spent a lot of yesterday building some garden furniture, so I'm feeling a bit, was a bit stressed by that.
Are you a DIY expert?
No, I don't like DIY.
Flat packing?
I like GOTDI. Get others to do it. Do you like DIY?
I like the thought of it.
You've built a greenhouse, haven't you, back in the day?
I needed help.
A lot of help?
Yes.
Emotionally as well as physically?
In every way possible. It's one of the interesting things, though. I'm not very good at DIY at all, but one of the interesting things as a minister, I don't know if you find this, is because our work is spiritual and you don't see much, if any, physical fruit from ministry, I find sometimes I just have to do something that produces a physical result fairly quickly to give me a sense of I've actually achieved something this week. I remember there was a week a while ago and I got to the end of the week, it was Friday afternoon, and I just thought, I've got to build something. So I just, with some bits of wood, built a plant, pot for outside, a raised bed. And I was like, I've done it. I've achieved something this week.
Something that you can just look at and go, it's done.
I made that. That's there. It was by me. It's not very good, but I've done it.
But we're definitely not in the business and ministry of DIY.
No, not at all. You do hear about these ministers who have got these wonderful skills in woodwork or DIY, but not me.
And, the gospel itself, DIY, we don't do it ourselves.
No, we don't. We don't. It's all by grace.
That's why I don't do DIY, because it's not the gospel.
Yes, that is religion.
Depending on in DIY, I depend on my father and father-in-law. Just like in the gospel, I depend on Jesus. So it's all part of modelling the Christian life. That's
yes.
why.
Yeah, get Jesus to do it.
Amen. We're in Philippians.
Wonderful, Henry, and thank you so much for your sermon. Yes, on Sunday. I was going to say yesterday, but we've had a day's space to mull on it, and thanks so much. Living a life worthy of the gospel, and you spoke about standing firm, striving together, and suffering. Do you want to just elaborate at all on those things?
I'm loving Philippians. And I guess I read this week we're entering into the meat of Philippians. The real key themes are starting to come out, and
really from about verse 27, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And so one of the ways we see this is that living in a manner of life worthy of the gospel. It's a really interesting word for manner of life. There's not really an English word that does it justice, and it could also be translated as behave as citizens or live according to your homeland. And so we see this exact word come up in chapter 3 verse 20, which is translated as citizens, and says, let me just find it, but our citizenship is in heaven. And that's the same word. And so some people would say that is bookending a section in the middle section of Philippians where all these key themes come out about living as citizens, pressing on towards the goal, humility, and living as Christ lived. And we see that we're going to see that next week in the next couple of weeks, the kind of theology of Christ laying down his life for us, the example of Timothy and Epaphroditus, and in Paul's own example, where he says, I count all things as loss compared to this passing worth of Jesus Christ. And so you've got these two calls, one in 127, live a manner of life worthy of the gospel. And then from 3:12, you've got another call to strain and to press on, and to that's from like 12 to the end of chapter 3. And in the middle, you've almost got these key examples, the example of Christ, the example of Paul, and the example of Timothy and Epaphroditus, almost as living examples, living testimonies of a gospel-centered, or living as citizens, living lives worthy of the gospel. And so it's really exciting to be able to press into this stuff.
It is encouraging, and in terms of living a life worthy of the gospel, the standing firm and the striving together and the suffering all seems to have like an external focus, as if, particularly with that you can see that with the suffering especially, and being persecuted. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so why do we need to stand firm? Why do we need to strive? The assumption behind this is that we are going to face opposition. So stand firm in one spirit with one mind, striving side by side for the faith of the gospel, and not frightened in anything by your opponents. So there's a call to stand firm and to strive, because we will receive opposition. And strikingly, in verse 29, this is something that's been granted to us. For it has been granted to you that for the sake of Christ you should not only believe in him, but suffer for his sake. And so it's something we can expect. And one thing I didn't mention...
It sounds like a gift.
Exactly. And, that's very counterintuitive to us in our modern culture, where we do all we can to navigate the most comfortable path, the easiest route, what decisions can I make that are going to minimize my suffering? And this invites us to a different perspective. My striving is not for my own comfort, but it's for the gospel, which is very challenging.
Yeah, because he's saying that it's not about me, it's about Christ. It's not about my comforts, but his kingdom.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I was really encouraged by, but being honest, I forgot to say on Sunday, so sorry about that. But
is this a whole point that you missed out? Should we have had 4 points?
I thought about this, but I don't know. But maybe this is what's on the study floor, is that if we are suffering for the gospel, that is can be a great assurance that we are a citizen of heaven, that we are saved, that we are part of God's people. And I think verse 28 says this: "This is a clear sign to them of their destruction, but of your salvation, and that from God." And so I wonder whether some of the backdrop to this is suffering believers who are suffering at the hands of the people, of the culture, of religious oppression, and maybe they're like, oh, are we the real deal? Is this how it's supposed to be? And Paul is saying your suffering is a sign that they are on the path to destruction. They are acting as enemies of God. They are not saved. It's a sign of your salvation. It's a sign that God is with you and he's at work, and this comes out in Paul's testimony of being in prison, that my imprisonment has really served to advance the gospel. He says a little bit later, my eager expectation and hope is that I will not be ashamed, but that with full courage now as always, Christ will be honoured in my body, whether by life or by death. For me to live is Christ, to die is gain. And so Paul can know that his suffering is almost like a badge and a mark that he is living for Christ, and he's on the way to salvation. And what a comfort and assurance that can be for us as if we are experiencing any sort of suffering because of our faith.
Yeah, I've not seen that before. That he's not said it quite in these words, but basically Paul's saying, I am living a life worthy of the gospel. Mm-hmm. The evidence of that is I'm suffering. Yeah. And it's a sign, like what? It's a sign not only of our salvation and living a life worthy of the gospel, it's also a sign that others aren't. And so other people may be more comfortable, but they might not be living for Christ. And it's a if the church becomes too like the culture, that sign's not there. But if Christians are living worthy lives, saying Christ is worth more than the world, and therefore I'm willing to lay down my comfort and follow him at all costs, that's a sign to the world that there's something different here, that Christians aren't just blending in, that they're living for something that they believe to be worth more. And I guess what I did bring out was Christ on the cross. He dies, he gives up his life, and the centurion sitting there sees the way Jesus dies and says,
surely this man is the Son of God. There's something striking about the death of Jesus, and there should be something striking about the life of believers, that we're living not to make ourselves worthy for the gospel, but living to show the worth of Christ, and being a sign that we are different. We are willing to suffer. We are willing to forgo our comfort for the sake of Christ. So yeah, I should have said that, but I've yeah. Anyway,
You said it now.
I said it now. So, but yeah, I found that really encouraging, and you don't get everything right as a preacher, and so it's good that we have a podcast to mop up afterwards.
Is there anything else you want to use the podcast to mop up?
Do you want to do any mopping up?
No, that's just really helpful. Yeah, and I did think your 3 points were really clear. The standing firm, the striving, and the suffering. All beginning with S as well. Good alliteration there. As ways in which we live a life worthy of the gospel, and ways. As it were, external evidence that we're living a life worthy of the gospel. We're going to come to internal evidence in a bit, in the next section. But so even opponents of the gospel can go, you we don't like what you're doing and how you're living, but you are living in consistently with what you claim to believe, which is incredible,
absolutely,
and powerful as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the sign. We're supposed to be a powerful sign of the fact that our citizenship is not here. A preacher from London called William Taylor. I remember him summing up the book of Philippians as we are to be citizen soldiers, which is a cool and so citizens pressing on, striving for the gospel. We have a new identity as Christians. We have a new passport. We have a new origin, and we're called to live out that origin. And the code of conduct for our homeland is the gospel, which calls us to, like Christ, lay down our lives for Him and for others. There was one thing that I did the illustration of standing firm, being like a boulder in a river, and even though the water is constantly crashing down the boulder, constantly hitting it, constantly washing over it, the boulder, the rock. I was picturing this kind of array of big, chunky rocks that go across the River Wharfe in Yorkshire, and there's a dip in the water, and the water's constantly, day by day, crashing down on these rocks, and these rocks are just there. They're getting hit, but they're just there, and they're not moving. And on the Slido, someone helpfully pointed out that those rocks are steadily eroding. So, and asked, is there a better illustration of standing firm and not moving? So, don't know. Can you think of anything, John P?
I just think of Helvellyn.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Now, somebody may say
in the Lake District, big hill in the Lake District.
Big hill in the Lake District. Someone might say yes, but that's eroding as well. To which I would probably say in response, maybe, but it will be there long after we have gone.
Yeah. And I guess, every illustration is imperfect, but we as Christians standing firm, we are, we've been in 2 Corinthians in community groups, and we are eroding in that sense. We are light and momentary. We are our outer selves are wasting away. But our inner selves are being renewed day by day. So, I don't know. I'm a standing firm Christian, but I'm also a wasting away Christian, trusting that one day I will have a immovable, full of life body. But yeah, always very happy to receive. I love an illustration and a story and an anecdote. So if anyone's ever got any suggestions of better ones or good ones, then
I was going to say, has the questioner come up with a better illustration?
Yeah, they did. I'm really sorry, I can't remember what they said now. But they did suggest something, and it was better. But I can't remember it. So yeah, Helvellyn's good though. That's yeah. Or even I think of something like, and again, this is something like. Strikes me. I used to live in Lincoln, and the cathedral there has just been there for years, for hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe almost 1,000 years. Very, very old. And or there's certain the castle has been there 500-600 years, maybe longer again, and they're just these buildings that have just been there. The city around has been changing and redeveloped, but they're just kind of there, doing their thing. And I think that's the picture of, like, though culture is like rushing water and constantly moving and changing, and culture is like an ever-developing city, culture is like an ever-changing, the weather in the Lake District is always changing, and it's quick to go one way or the next, and that mountain will keep getting hit by different things. There's just I'm just here. I'm going to hold to the old story of the gospel. I'm going to stand on what I believe. I'm going to, and to do that, we need to be of one spirit. I might ask you about that in a second. In relying on the Spirit who saves us and changes us and empowers us, and with one mind, united in the truth of the gospel, be coming together to listen to sermons, to pray together, to study the Bible together, reminding each other and building each other up in the truth of the gospel. Do you have any thoughts on specifically what it means to stand firm in one spirit? Because there's great depth of meaning to that, but did you have any particular thoughts on that?
That's a sermon this next week.
Yes. Cliffhanger.
Because I think in verse 27 when it says about let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ, you've then got in verses 27 to 30 the kind of almost external or facing opposition way that you are living worthy of the gospel, standing firm and striving and suffering. And then if that's to do with how you are engaged with the culture around the world outside the church, the next question is, well, what does that mean internally? What does it mean as a church to walk worthy of the gospel? What does it mean to walk worthy of the gospel with other believers? And I think the answer is be of one mind, be of one spirit, which is what he picks up on in verses 1 to 4 of chapter 2. And the question then is, well, how do you do that? And the answer is listen to the sermon on Sunday. Because I've not prepared it yet.
Great. Same time next week, everyone. Looking forward to it. Brilliant. I'm out of things to say.
This time tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, of course. This time tomorrow. Stand firm. Strive. Side by side for the gospel. And if you are suffering for the gospel, know that is a sign of your salvation.
That's so encouraging. Thanks, Henry. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, all good. Thank you for questions. Thank you for listening. Thanks, Jumpy. Great conversation. Thank you for everyone for engaging with the podcast. And we welcome your questions. Slido.com, #St. Clements. Do catch up with our resources and sermons on the church website, stclementschurchmanchester.org, or on YouTube. And most importantly, we'd love to see you on a Sunday morning at 10:30 or Sunday evening at 6:30. But wherever we see you, we'll catch you soon. Goodbye.
God bless.